Welcome to Playing with Fire, the podcast for people who are ready to custom build their love.
We're talking about non-monogamy, however you design it, as an individuation opportunity.
Want to leave the default and make your life spectacularly you? You're in the right place.
I want to talk about defensiveness.
Nah,
Right?
you don't
That's
really.
that's
No.
not. No,
That's-
we don't
no.
want to do that.
No.
That sounds horrible. Yeah, it's. I've struggled with defensiveness in my relationships, and I've made some decent progress, I think. And I wanted to share what I've learned along the way.
I love that. And I love that you're owning it. And I want to say, I struggle with defensiveness too. It's just that mine looks different. Mine's more palatable in general, or is more of a hard stop. It's harder to detect, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
A
Yeah.
little harder to detect. So that doesn't mean I don't do it.
Yeah, we all do. Of course. I mean, we defend ourselves. We try to maintain ourselves. Our ego needs to, right? It's like, hey, I am me and I need people to see me. And when I'm defending, well, let's talk a little bit. What is defensiveness?
Yeah.
What does that mean? To me, it means it's an act of preservation. I'm defending something. I'm trying to keep something
Or someone.
from changing. Yeah, or someone. But I'm trying to prevent change. If you can come up with an example of defense that isn't about preventing change, I'd love to hear it because I couldn't come up with any.
I think that's a really interesting way to conceptualize it, because when I think about feeling defensive, it doesn't feel like I'm blocking change,
Yeah.
but I am blocking myself from having to acknowledge another viewpoint. I'm blocking myself from acknowledging my own multiplicity. I'm also blocking myself from experiencing the dissonance of trying to hold two truths at once. And like you said, there's an important phase we all go through in adolescence where we are, adolescence all the way right up through the first half of adult life, where we are building a strong enough ego to face a complex world.
Mm-hmm.
And this isn't the ego that is in the way of your life. This is the ego strength that allows you to exist in a world that is challenging and will not go your way. So I like that you were talking about resisting change, because I think about how I felt as a teenager and how I got nostalgic real fast. Like I remember starting to feel nostalgic and wanting things to stay the same when I was 16 and 17 and 18 years old. So I wonder if this is
I've seen that in our kids.
Yeah, part of that lack of ability to embrace change as the constant.
And I'm glad you brought multiplicity into it, because so I like my definition about preventing change, but multiplicity actually kind of does an end run around the concept of change, because some of the things that we might be preserving are like our self-image, for example, or our level of comfort.
Yep.
But multiplicity allows more than one thing to be true at a time. So if my self-image is, I want to be seen as a smart person. Okay, cool. And then if someone comes to me and challenges me on something and says, this wasn't done the way a smart person would do it, now I have a choice. I can defend against that and say, no, I need to maintain my self-image as a smart person. And that's all there is to it. So no, I have to defend against this because it doesn't line up. It feels like an attack. But what if I'm a smart person who sometimes does stupid things? Right. Now I get to keep.
Or what if there are multiple smart ways to approach a problem?
Or multiple smart ways, yeah. So multiplicity actually is a lovely little fix for that.
I think of it as clipping the red wire. If you're talking about diffusing defensiveness, the lens of multiplicity helps you clip that red wire that allows you then to work with the situation, slow it down again. I think a great example of defensiveness comes up when we're trying to do apologies, when we're trying
Oh,
to
sure.
apologize to each other. I know that when I'm apologizing, the desire to defend my position, to keep myself good while also acknowledging, okay, I'm going to say I'm sorry and I'm going to explain to you why I did it. That's defensiveness, and it's anti-relational.
Oh,
It
do people
feels
do that with you when they apologize?
I mean,
I have to actively
it might have
like
happened
put my
today. No.
hand over my mouth when I'm apologizing to prevent the explanation that's designed to, yeah, it's a defense. It's just
Well,
a defense.
I joke that it happens, every day. You've been doing a great job of using a clear apology ladder to help yourself stay on track with an apology and stay. And when I say on track, the apology's purpose is to get us back into relationship and also to take full ownership of what happened.
Hmm.
There's another whole conversation that can be had where we talk about sharing, oh, what did it look like from my perspective, and why did I make the decisions I made, and how did I think that was going to help myself or us. And that's all well and good, and
Yep.
it disempowers the actual apology. And
Yeah.
that's just one example. Apologies is an easy one. And there's another time that I see people getting truly caught in defensiveness, which is when they're trying to negotiate an agreement with a partner. Right? You're partnered to somebody, you're negotiating an agreement, and you've run up against a thing that you want. And rather than just claim it as, well, I want this, you start getting defensive and start like trying to explain why you want it. And there can be some good in explaining the why, but also you just get to have wants.
Hmm. Yeah.
And your partners get to meet them or not meet them and agree to them or not agree to them, right? Like our partners aren't need fulfilling machines. So they get if we're going to foster a culture of, hey, let's make requests of each other and let's receive a no, then we don't need to do the like the proactive defensiveness of, here's what I want and here's all the reasons why I should get to have it. Um, I think for me that comes up, and that's a really strong form of defensiveness for me, because I have a core wound that says my wants are too much. That what I want and need are, it's too much. It's an imposition. And so I feel the need to be defensive proactively before you've even had a chance to just hear what the want is and respond. So really it's about me not trusting my partner to be an adult with their own agency. And obviously, that doesn't lead us anyplace really good, but it also can make every conversation about agreements take hours
Yes.
when
Yeah.
they don't always need to.
Yeah, because you end up not even talking about the agreement at that point, but you're into, um, well, either dismantling the defensiveness or simply experiencing it
And
for a
I
while.
find it's a bolstering of my. You talked about your self image, defending your self image. It's to me it's also a bolstering of my self image. I am a good person, and now I will defend why I'm a good person and how
Yep.
um, and defensiveness isn't always anti-relational, like as in it's an argument. It can just be a block to allowing ourselves to experience peace. Like sometimes my partner just says yes and they don't need me to be defensive. They don't need, like you especially are great at accepting my wants and needs without me offering a ton of defensive explanation. And actually, if we get into the defensive explanation, sometimes you're a little like off put. I see
Hmm.
you kind of bristle at like, well, why? No, I was just going to do it. I was just
Because
with you.
so then that inspires my own defensiveness. And I was going to say this, that defensiveness inspires defensiveness,
Yeah.
even in a situation where there is no, there, there's no conflict happening. There's no, there's no hostility, but so you feel a need to explain yourself proactively, and
And
that's
over
your
explain
and
myself.
over explain yourself, and that's you defending some part of your ego that needs everybody to know that you have reasons to want things. You don't just have to want things,
Yeah,
for
I would go
example.
even bolder. It's
Mhm.
many parts of my inner council,
Mhm.
right? Like I experience myself as having many parts who feel like, it is not safe to have wants and needs, and it definitely will not be acceptable. And therefore, yeah, let me give you all their different reasons.
Right. And then from my side, um, I am defending my my reality, my
Your
how do I
self
say this?
perception, your self
No, my
concept.
public perception.
Oh,
Because that's another thing that we might be defending, our self-image, our public image. It's so if you have to explain yourself to me, then you must believe of me that I don't just want good things for you. So now I'm defending your perception of me because I want you to understand that no, what you no, I don't put that on me. I'm not like that. And so now I'm defensive, and now the two of us are defensive, and from a very innocent, hey, let's do this thing. Okay, that can turn into a fight
right.
because of defensiveness.
Right. So the fights can start from defensiveness, but also anytime there is a point of contention, right? And so whether we recognize that we're in a fight or an argument or a disagreement, like whatever language fits the description for you, defensiveness. Like this is a really wonderful way to change the tone of a disagreement is to recognize when I'm defensive,
Yep.
and at the same time accusations of defensiveness, right? Or noticing that your partner is defensive often are not received well. So if we're in an argument and I tell you, you're getting defensive. I mean,
No, I'm not.
way to bolster
Wait.
like the drawbridge
Yeah.
is going up now.
Yep.
The like
Yep.
it's so I have found that you've done a great job of utilizing our soft safe word in
Mm.
order to manage my defensiveness. When you see me in a defensive posture, you'll use our soft safe word. And a soft safe word for us is a word that we can use at any point. Our word is marshmallow. Feel free to steal it. Um, it's if you say marshmallow to me, my job is to recognize, okay, pause and take a deep breath. Just wait a second because he's noticing that we are not seeing things from the same perspective, and that's okay because we don't need to. We don't need to. We
Yep.
don't
We don't
need
need
to be
to.
on the same side even.
Mhm.
We can just pause long enough for each of us to take a breath so that this doesn't escalate. And how that has been helpful for me is defensiveness is really fun for me. I love it. I'm really, really
Mm.
good at it. I'm
Mhm.
like really, really skilled at both being defensive and also looking like I'm not. That's not awesome. Like, that is really, really not good for me, let alone for you and for us. So, when you use that word to help me remember to just take a breath and I start checking in on, okay, which part of me is, yes, possibly protecting, defending, all of that. Which part of me is getting off on it? Which part of me is
Oh,
like,
yeah.
yay, somebody's fighting with me? Because I was raised in a household where my father encouraged me to fight with him. That was his favorite thing. And for the last 10 years of his life, he was so mad at me because I wouldn't fight with him that he did some terrible things in the last decade of his life to inspire me to have a knockdown drag out with him, to get defensive,
Yep.
to get all riled up. And so there are parts of me who are really into it. They
Sure.
want
Yeah.
to fight, and being defensive is a good way to embroil us both because, like you said, defensiveness then begets defensiveness, and
Yep.
now we're in this adversarial stance. And there are some parts of me who are like, excellent, my Mr.
So
Burns parts.
yeah, excellent.
Excellent.
This episode is about dismantling defensiveness. And so what you were just describing are some avenues, some ways that you could reduce your defensiveness if you make use of this information you had. And I wanted to list some of the things to do, like, before you get to a situation where you're being defensive or you see somebody being defensive. What can we do to prepare so that we can avoid defensiveness later? And you just identified one of them, which is self-awareness. Build your self-awareness. Like, where do you defend?
Yeah.
Understand your we talk about the inner counsel here, and I think this is a really useful concept here. So, who in you loves to defend? Who in you loves the feeling of safety hiding behind that wall?
Yeah.
Who in you loves the fight that is created when you defend?
And I love the who in you question. You know I do. It's one of my favorite questions, who in you? And when I think about defensiveness, most of the time I will hear people talking about their inner children, right? Like, oh, I'm
Mm-hmm.
defending because I have this wounded inner child, and current conversation is talking a lot about like all the trauma that happened to us when we were children, or even just the discomfort that happened when we were children that left us with these wounded child parts. And I think it's important to acknowledge those parts could be defensive, and there are grown-up parts of
Mm-hmm.
us that, yeah, enjoy it, or that are also brittle in certain ways, or that have developed particular skills, and so are exercising those skills. And a lot of us witnessed a basic back and forth defensive strategy between our caregivers as like the primary model of relationship.
Right.
That's what
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
witnessed. So
So
that's
it
not
feels like connection.
right. And for me, that's not so much about my wounded inner child as, oh, I think that's what I'm supposed to be doing. I think that love and ongoing long-term relationship just has this core ongoing, you have this viewpoint, I have this. It's that adversarial positioning. And I think that that is a normal part. That this part of me thinks that that is a normal way for a relationship to function. So I have to check in with that part and be like, ooh, wait, is
Yeah.
that the life you want to live? And it takes constant unpacking, like constant self-awareness checks to recognize like, oh, I am quite literally creating an argument because I think that is an appropriate and fun way to have a relationship. That part of me does. And then, 99 other parts of me are like, no, could we not? Are there
Right.
any other options?
Yeah.
But this is reminding me of Luis Mayorka's work, where he talks about, can you tolerate peace?
Mm-hmm.
Can you just tolerate the sensation of peace in your relationship? And I struggle to. Yeah, I don't have a lot of models of it. And so I think I sometimes inspire your defensiveness because it feels more recognizable. And I feel how you are relating to me then.
That's really interesting. I mean, we've talked about this, and right in this moment, I was imagining um, modeling peace in that moment. So if you are like, this is, I, I need to stir things up a little bit, and if I don't stir stuff up, I was just imagining how that feels for me, and it feels, uh, it feels like shutting down part of our connection. It feels
Yeah.
like an actual disconnect for me to do that. And so I don't very much. I will usually buy in,
So this is one of
but
the
I don't
moments
have
when I'm
to.
like, you know
No.
what? Just start a podcast with your partners and like talk to them. Like,
Yeah, because you just learn
none of
stuff.
the other people that we partnered with have wanted to be in this conversation. Um, but you know what? Gosh darn it. I learned so much about you.
Right?
It's
Yeah,
just so
me
funny
too.
to me.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
so anyway,
So
yeah,
when you buy into that part of me
yep,
wanting to connect through an adversarial positioning, it's an easy space for me to then stay in. I can maintain it for
yep,
quite a long time. And when I say a long time, I mean like I can maintain that for 24, 36, 72 hours. Days
yeah.
can start to
Mhm.
stack up where we're having easeful moments and moments of discomfort. but the core of how we're connecting is around this, um, yeah, defending whether you're good or
Yep.
not.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I continually work on this, but I think the biggest work I'm doing right now is on, what if everything's good? What if things are good and okay in my heart? What if it's okay that I feel peaceful here?
This is really interesting, because I had made a little list of things that I think are valuable to work on outside of any defensive situation, and it was self-awareness. So all this self-reflection, which all of the things we're talking about are self-reflection, um, and I also put down building distress tolerance, which sure, but you've just inspired me to put in building positive affect tolerance in there,
Yeah.
because that, if it's really hard, like Louise says, of can you tolerate peace? If the answer is no, then you're likely to do something to disrupt it.
Right.
And defensiveness is one of the things that can do that. Wow, that's
So there
amazing.
are a bunch of different people. So Luis is talking about that right now. I know Gay Hendricks wrote about the upper limit problem
Yep.
in The Big Leap. Then you've got Andrew Leeds' work in EMDR therapy around positive affect tolerance. So there are a lot of different resources we can put in the show notes to say, if you are struggling with like experiencing peacefulness, and if that's part of your why defensiveness is a constant theme, there's a lot of work to be done there, and it's pleasant work, it's pleasurable work. It can be uncomfortable to sit with peace, but think about it, you're moving toward more peace. It's pretty cool. And there are a lot of resources right now, and that's not the only reason defensiveness comes up, because it also comes up, when I think about our early relationship. um you My experience of you was that you had to conceive of yourself as entirely good,
Yes. Yeah, that's
and
accurate.
like
Hmm.
it was an all or
It
nothing.
was
You
a
were
very
either a
not
good person
nuanced
or a bad person.
self-concept. Yeah.
Yeah. And so how I experienced that was that when I would bring a problem to you and say, "Hey, this hurt me," or "I don't like how this is going," or I think that you are creating a problem in our business, in our, raising our kids, whatever. I think you're causing a problem. You would fall the fuck apart.
Yeah, I would. I would
You
just
would
crumble.
fall apart.
Crumble
Totally,
like a
like
house of cards.
actually crumble. I remember one time you were in our office at the gym, and I was telling you how what you were doing was not working. It was causing a problem, not just for me, but for our family.
Yeah.
And you crumbled down. You were down, like in squatting in paleo chair. You were like down there squatting down, and I could see this weakness. You were crumbling, and I wanted to show you. So I walked over and I just pushed on your shoulder, and you completely fell over. You just fell over, which, you're a very strong person. You can hold 300 pounds on your back, no problem in that position. So it was really interesting to watch you actually crumble. And that was the turning point for me when I realized, oh, this is an all or nothing deal for you. I'm pointing out that
Yep.
you're causing a problem and that you're making a choice that is causing a problem. And you were dissolving. Your whole self-concept, right down to your literal core muscles, were like, nope, then we're ruined. And you fell apart. And I loved seeing it physically enacted, because from there I was able to start thinking about, oh, so we got to dig into this together and talk about how can I approach you with a problem, because
You
I
have
know
asked
you.
that question so many times over the years, and less so lately, but not never.
Yeah.
Not none,
How can I
because
approach a person who needs to be perfect?
right, yeah, it's and there's no nuance in perfection, none at all. It's the
No.
whole point.
Right.
And yeah, we're
Do you know
humans
where
aren't
yours
perfect.
comes from? Where your perfectionism started?
I think in the my golden boy treatment as a child. I mean, just off the top of my head, I haven't
Yeah.
actually thought about it too deeply, but um, there were a lot of expectations of me, and apparently, those expectations were tied to my sense of being loved. So if I
Right.
made mistakes, I must not be lovable. I think about my childhood, and I don't think that my parents in like that wasn't their point of view, but their actions supported that interpretation. And for whatever reason, I grabbed onto that one. There were other
Hold
patterns
on.
that they could have that would have matched their behavior too. But
Yeah, hold the presses though. Say that again slowly for all of us. As a child, we make interpretations. That's all our nervous system is doing,
right,
receiving input, making interpretations, and then giving output. And it makes perfect sense to me that you interpreted some of their actions, maybe even one or two sentences, and you started forming a core belief that in order to be loved, you needed to be perfect.
yeah,
Your parents didn't need to have that intention for it to happen.
right,
And then 50 some odd years later, you find yourself dealing with an ongoing perfectionist tendency
yeah,
that leads you to a sense of defensiveness in your relationships and leads you away from actually making improvements
right,
because you need to already be perfect. You need to
right.
already be correct.
No, I don't need to take any action. I can't have to take any action, or I'm not worth taking the action. It's quite a little Mobius strip uh, of self concept.
Right. So one of the things that I watched you do after that moment where you quite literally fell down in the gym, you were involved in a men's group at the time, and I remember you were doing some work there, some mirroring work and
Yeah.
some, getting feedback on how your presentation was coming
Mm,
across.
yep.
And I remember between that and going through your analysis, I remember you starting to do some actual shadow integration. And I want to be clear what I mean here. Shadow integration, as in facing the parts of you that you have so thoroughly disowned and cut off that they could not be you. And so you
For
have to
example, my imperfections.
yes. So
Yeah.
you have to defend against
Yep.
any assertion that this is you by defending through verbal actions, defending through um, complete denial of any other perspective. And I watched you start to do this integration, and there are so many ways. We could do another whole episode on what shadow integration is, what it means to do that thing that is called shadow work, and it's not as simple as just opening up a book and making a few journal entries. It's going to be a
It's
lifelong process.
quite a bit more than that. Yeah.
Um, but the but the premise, the core premise of what you cannot know about yourself, what you cannot accept about yourself, becomes these huge blocks toward your intimacy with others. So at core, when I saw you start to acknowledge like that you are your shadow as well as your light, when I saw you start to digest bits of that and say, "Oh, I suck in some ways.
Yep.
I've been a bad person. I've caused harm." And you started to metabolize that reality. I saw you start to be able to stand in the face of making a mistake or harming someone and fully, truly own your part in it without over functioning and stand there accepting it and offering actual reconnection,
Hmm.
actual restitution, actual repair. And that's really where I think one of the major fault lines was crossed in our relating. So we've been together for 15 years, and that happened around year 4. And it was a chasm that had opened up, and we jumped over it. And the jump for you appeared to be in getting to suck, like
Yep.
getting to be a bad person who was loved. And I know you still get pushback from people when you say, like, no, I suck. I am not all good.
It's important for me to be able to say because of how long I spent not being able to acknowledge that at all.
Right. And
And I get that other people have different sets of issues, and that statement would would be the opposite. It would be as damaging as someone telling me I was perfect.
right. So,
Yeah, to
like,
them.
I have an inner perfectionist, and I have found that that same the idea, rather than say, like using a phrase like, "Oh, I suck," or I'm bad," using a phrase like, "Wow, I really don't know how to do everything." Because the
Yeah.
way I,
Yep.
instead of my perfectionist being, I have to just be good, it's I have to know how to do everything. I have to know, and I'm responsible for literally everything.
Yeah.
So for me, it's more about incorporating, no, I don't know. I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to fix it.
Right.
And I'm not, I don't know how to take responsibility for that. It's not my responsibility. So what we're talking about here is getting down into our personal core wound messages and how
Mhm.
individual they are and how nuanced they are, and that we can't just take one strategy to walk away from defensiveness. It's not actually just as simple as
Nope.
saying don't get defensive. This is
No, it isn't.
deep acceptance
Yep.
work of, oh, who am I and how am I? And I actually think that the conversation around defensiveness has been really great for us over the last couple years while we've been working towards virtuosity in this relationship.
Yep.
Is to, like, oh, there was still a lot, and there still is day to
Because
day. There's a lot of work we can both do to reduce defensiveness, accept our flaws, and be present and allow ourselves to be loved and experience peace in the face of a flawed experience.
right.
It's huge.
Is there of in the context of our relationship, the biggest problem with defensiveness is the disconnect that it produces.
Yeah,
It 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 can massively interfere with our connection. It can also subtly interfere with our connection in ways that aren't obvious in the moment but then grow over time. So it's really pernicious.
it
um,
is.
there are other things that defensive gets in the way of, personal growth, creativity in particular. Like when I'm being defensive, my creative thinking is really suppressed.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that gets in the way of you being able to take actions in the moment,
Yes.
right? Like,
Hmm.
so what are your core, I pointed out that one of the moves I see you take is use our soft safe word to
Yeah.
pause us for a moment. What else do you do?
So to avoid my own defensiveness, I mean that self awareness, we cannot can't stress that enough. But that's a lifelong thing anyway. For me, there's always more to learn about myself, and the more I learn, the more I can notice in the moment that something's coming up for me. So the defensive, it used to be that the defensiveness just was me, and I couldn't really detect when it started. But now I've learned enough about me to notice the signals of defensiveness, how I stand, the tone of my voice, things like that, and the physical sensations behind defensiveness that might not be visible.
Yeah, fear for me, feeling how I'm holding my face,
Yes,
or
yep.
looking in a mirror
I
is
mean,
really helpful.
my lips have a go-to spot for
Yeah.
defensiveness. So
Yeah.
noticing all those things is really, really important. But then once I notice, I still have to do something about it. And some of those actions are neurosomatic intelligence drills,
Yeah. Because they're fast.
because they're fast, they're
So you
quick.
use your high payoff drills. If
Hmm.
you don't know about that, we can link to the NSI training. It's a there are lots of ways to learn to self-regulate. This is one particular way, and we like it because you can do a few drills in a minute or two and start having a sense of being present
Yeah,
again if you're
really bring
dissociating or getting hyper defensive and starting to be anti-relational even to yourself.
even to yourself. That's a good point.
Yeah.
And here's the thing that, so on top of noticing so that I know to take action, um, my go-to move is to ask questions instead of
Mm.
making statements. Because I,
Damn, that was a huge deal for me.
yeah,
Such a huge deal. I remember when you found your question mark button
hmm,
and installed it on your emotional keyboard. I remember that so clearly. It was
and I
like I got
still
a
feel like
brand
I
new
have a
partner.
long way to go, but it has been crucial because the defensiveness was based on my interpretation of what you were saying or doing. My interpretation, finding out what yours was and what your intention was, and assuming goodwill, or at least expecting goodwill. I'm not saying don't think critically about, whoever
Yeah,
you're
when somebody
interacting
shows
with. You don't
you
want,
who they are,
yeah, I
believe
mean,
them, but also
don't blindly assume goodwill, but look for it. And part of
in
that is asking questions like, oh, that your answer to my question tells me that the thing that I was defending against isn't actually present in this conversation.
right. So
That's,
we're not the fight we're having is not the fight we're having.
yep.
And that is core. I mean, we'll see this in across the relationship research that generally speaking, the content is not the thing.
Yeah.
The content of your argument is not where the problem actually lies. It's
But I
in the
don't
process.
necessarily recommend going directly to the question of, so what is it that's really bothering you?
Oh, you did that just last week. It was so much fun. I was like, did you? Because I remember my eyes crinkled up and I was like, did
Yeah,
you
they
think that was
did.
going to work? Like, I, I, I appreciate your
And
curiosity.
it's tricky because that the way I asked the question, the way I approached the concept, which was a reasonable concept, I was trying to bring in, and this is the other thing that I do to avoid defensiveness or to combat it in myself, is to bring in more layers of experience. Like, we're having a conversation, we're just having this conversation. And if I'm starting to feel like if I'm starting to feel defensive, then I can back out a little bit. It's like, what else is going on, both for me and for you? Because the thing is, that was the right question to ask, but I asked the wrong person. I needed to ask me, what is it that's really bothering me?
It was an
So I was
interesting
almost there,
moment.
just a little off, but
It was
oh
an
my God,
interesting moment because
hilarious, honestly.
you asked me that, and I remember thinking just like oh, you want to make this worse? Like, why are you asking me? It felt very much like in that particular conversation, I was the one that was experiencing an ouch.
Right.
I was the one who was like, this is really hurting.
Yep.
And it it felt obvious to me that you didn't yet want to take any responsibility for the hurting,
For the
for the
thing
things
itself.
that were
Yeah. Mhm.
bothersome. And so, yeah, a great way to handle that, if you want to stay dug in, is to
Try to make it about
project
something else and project. And yeah.
project
Right.
onto your partner what you're feeling. And defensiveness, asking questions as a way to mitigate defensiveness. Yeah, so to add to the idea of expecting goodwill or looking for goodwill, ask questions in good faith.
Yes,
So
that
if
is
you're
very
not willing to
important.
ask yourself the question first,
Mhm, mhm.
that's an indicator to me that something bigger is going on. Because if you had asked yourself the question, you would have come up with an immediate answer that said, "Oh, I'm the one that's out of sorts here,"
Yep,
because you
that's
were
right.
really out of sorts, and there was good reason for you to be out of sorts, but that was all your stuff to deal
But it
with,
was
and you
my
were
stuff.
coming and
So,
making it part of an us thing.
which brings us to another thing that I do, which is contextualize the issue. Because if we're talking about something that has to do with my partner's experience and they are relaying to me, for example, how it didn't work for them, that's not yet time for me to bring my experience into the conversation. I'll get my turn.
Yeah.
And you and I have established that as a communication technique that we have. But it works for anybody because all you have to do is, okay, we're talking about you right now. Later, we'll talk about me.
Right.
That's all. And that pressure, that desire to say a thing, then has somewhere to go, and it doesn't have to be now.
So these are a lot. This was a conversation about defensiveness and the strategies you could use. I want to applaud you using the strategies, and maybe even more so, being able to have a meta conversation about what you're doing demonstrates that you are growing in this area. I know this was your idea. This particular episode was your idea. You wanted to talk about it, and um, I really think that you have demonstrated that you're making actual steps and not getting caught up in perfectionism, because
Yeah,
you've
right.
been falling into the gaps over and over again,
Yep.
even recently as this week, and getting back up and looking straight at the issue. And that makes our relationship continually flow more smoothly and feel more connective even when we're experiencing disruption. So I'm grateful. Thanks for doing the work. So if you want to talk about defensiveness with us, come join us at our next Ask Me Anything. We have a Playing with Fire Ask Me Anything happening monthly. It happens all different times and days of the month because I want to keep it mixed up so different people across the globe can attend. Join us. You'll find the link to sign up at joliehamilton.com/AMA.
We love to hear what you've got to say, what your questions are. We love sharing with everybody. Thanks.
There's no one right way to design your relationship. And lots of people, actually about 25%, according to a recent national survey, are interested in some type of open relationship. But how do you know if you are ready to open up happily? Not everyone is, and that's no problem. I've got a 60-second quiz that will give you the answer. And even better, you'll walk away with your next step, whether you're good to go or not so much when it comes to opening up. And this is no BuzzFeed nonsense. I personally designed this quiz from my years of academic research. Go to joliequiz.com. That's JOLIQUIZ.com and find out if you're ready to open up happily and what to do if you are or if you're not.